Hello, everyone. Mike Starks with Remax Town and Country here, bringing you the mid-year real estate report for Fredericksburg, Texas, and Gillespie County. And, unless you've been on the mothership visiting your home planet for the past 6 months, you probably already know that the real estate world is still struggling a little. Just between everyone on the planet losing their minds and threatening to blow each other up, to Powell, the Fed refusing to lower interest rates. There's just a lot of things making nervous buyers to make a move right now, and that's affected the market and really made inventory build up. And that actually reminds me that after my last market report, some friends of mine, Jim and Renee Dobbin, had emailed me asking about active listings, now compared to previous years. And when I looked that up, I was actually surprised at just how big of a change we had. So to answer their question, as of June 30th of this year, we have 921 active listings in Gillespie County, which is certainly a record. And for perspective, in 2024, we had 732 active listings. In 2023, that number was 570 active listings. And if we go back to 2022, June 30th, we had 270 active listings. So that's a 241% increase in the number of listings on the market over the last 3 years. And I think that really tells us a lot about where the market is right now. And then the other part of Jim and Renee's question was, why do I think there's so many listings on the market right now? And so, for my opinion, I don't think it's that we just had a lot of new listings. Just life happens. There's a certain number of folks who decide to move every year, whether it's, for a grandbaby somewhere or a new job somewhere. We really had the typical number of homes coming on the market in 23 and 24. But then a lot of folks who were not in a hurry to sell, we're trying to wait out 23 and 24, hoping that 25 is just going to be a great year for real estate. So they plan to put their property on the market this year. But as mentioned, lots of world instability. So that real estate rush that we were expecting just really never materialized. And that's what's really led to a record number of listings in Fredericksburg. And it's really not just Fredericksburg. It's all of Texas, and really all of the U.S. has, probably the highest number of inventory or active listings as ever. And unfortunately, we have a record low number of buyers looking right now. But all that said, Fredericksburg's still doing well because we're still pretty much holding steady across the board on prices. Although I am seeing, some sellers dealing a little bit harder with it when they do find a buyer. But anyway, so Jim and Renee, thanks for the question. If anybody out there is listening and they have a question on the market report or just a question about real estate in general, email me and I'll do my best to answer it. So let's get on into the market report itself. And as always, let's just talk the numbers. We'll start off by talking about total sales for all of Gillespie County. If we look at the first half of this year, so January 1st to June 30th of 2025, we've sold $148,471 worth of real estate in Gillespie County. In 2024, we'd sold $168,329,000 worth of real estate for the first half of the year. So that puts us down about 11.79% in total dollar sales year over year, year to year. Now, unit sales really weren't quite so far apart. With the first half of 2025, we'd sold 212 individual properties, and the first half of 2022, we'd sold 222 properties. So that's only down about 4.5% in the number of individual properties sold. But still, really not shaping up to be the year we hoped for. And even though this is the mid-year report, I just wanted to take a minute to look at the second quarter numbers only, because generally the second quarter is one of the strongest, but even the second quarter of this year is showing signs of a slow market. So for April 1st to June 30th in Gillespie County, for 2025, we'd sold $87,212,000 worth of real estate. Compared to 2024, we'd sold $106,499,000 worth of real estate in the second quarter. So the numbers are even a little more dismal, being 18.11% down in total dollar sales for the county. Now, one bright spot in all of this is actually homes in the city limits have picked up a little in the second quarter, and that's putting us a little ahead of the mid-year numbers from the previous year. So for sales of homes in the city limits, January 1st to June 30th of 2025, we'd sold 83 individual homes for a total of $46,276,000. You compare that to 2024, when we'd sold 74 homes for a total of $40,780,000. That actually puts us up 12.16% in the total number of homes we've sold and 13.47% in the total dollar volume. And as mentioned, prices are holding pretty steady. We ended 2024 with the average price of a home in Fredericksburg being $559,525 or $274.23 per foot. As of mid-year 2025, the average home in Fredericksburg is selling for $557,553 or $275.47 per foot. So a little bit higher on the price per foot and a little bit lower on the total price, but it's really, just kind of holding steady where it was. Now, the short-term rental market, on the other hand, is probably seeing the biggest drop in buyer interest. As I've said in the past, just too many people just jumped on the bandwagon thinking this would be easy money. But now we have such a saturation on the market, not many B&Bs are really making the money that they thought they would. And of course, if they're not making money, that makes it harder to sell to the next investor as well. But so for the first half of 2025, we've only sold 18 STR units in the Fredericksburg city limits for a total of $11,154,000. You compare that to the first half of 2024, we'd sold 31 STRs in town for a total of $21,241,000. So that's a pretty significant drop of 41.93% in the total number of unit sales and 47.42% drop in dollar volume. However, even here, we're seeing prices hold fairly steady. At the end of 2024, the average price per foot for an STR in Fredericksburg was $442.19. As of June 30th this year, the average price of an STR is going for $445.01 per foot. So that's actually slightly up. Rural residential sales are also pretty much holding their own with no big swings one way or the other. For rural residential in Gillespie County, we've sold 44 individual properties for a total of $45,252,000 this year, as compared to the first half of 2024, where we'd sold 46 individual properties for a total of $42,486,000. So that puts the dollar sales up about 6.5% and the total number of properties changing hands down about 4.3%. So really no big news here other than that homes or acreage are, still pretty much in demand. Raw land sales, also kind of the same boat here with slower volume this year, but prices remaining pretty steady. So for the first half of 2025, we've sold 1,610 acres of just unimproved raw land in Gillespie County. That was for a total of $33,055,000. For 2024, we'd sold 2,256 acres for the first half of the year, and that was a total of $54,902,000. So that's down about 39.38% in the total number of acres that we've sold this year, and also about 39.79% in the total dollars compared to last year. So certainly not great news for anyone trying to sell raw land right now. But, as mentioned, prices are holding pretty steady, with the exception of 100 to 250 acre segment. We've only sold 2 of those, and those are out past Harper. And so those sales are going to make that segment look really low. But here are the prices for per acre segmented by size for the first 6 months of 2025. A 1 to 5 acre tract currently is trading for $61,321 per acre. A 5 to 10 acre tract is $34,416 per acre. 11 to 25 acres trading for $30,996 per acre on average. 26 to 50 acres, $11,442 per acre. The 50 to 100 acre tracts is at $31,982. And this was another kind of an anomaly. We've only had two sales here, but both of those were really outstanding. So that 31,000 is a little higher than average. Then the 100 to 250 acre tract, currently this year, the average is $6,823 per acre. Uh, that's a really a low number, but as mentioned, those two sales just weren't super pretty. Then we've had one sell over 250 acres this year, and the average price or that price per acre on that one was $12,222 per acre. Then another bright spot is commercial sales. We've already sold more commercial in the first half of this year than we did all of last year. Although, I've said this, most transactions on commercial never make it to MLS, so my commercial numbers are not always the best representation of everything happening. But for 2025, we've already sold $11,181,000 worth of commercial real estate. And in 2024, that number was only $9,615,000. So, commercial's doing pretty good. So just to give you the quick recap, we're definitely in a slower market compared to last year and a whole lot slower than, 21 or 22 when things were just going gangbusters. And that's made the inventories levels rise to pretty much an all-time high, but overall pricing has really not changed much. And I'd been optimistic for a strong 2025, but right now with everything I mentioned at the beginning of this clip, I think for the rest of this year we're probably just going to kind of continue to plug along with no real big changes up or down. However, I'm still completely optimistic in general because Texas as a whole just has so much going for it economically. And really, Fredericksburg will remain one of the best spots to live in all of Texas. So I'm still optimistic. I don't know if we'll start picking up towards the end of this year or if it's going to be the, beginning of 2026 when we start seeing a strong increase, but it's coming. I'm just not sure when. So if you're selling something right now, you just need to be a little more patient and you may need to deal a little harder than normal when that buyer comes along. If you're a buyer, this is a great time because, man, you've got a lot of great options to choose from right now. That's kind of the market report as always. All these stats and more can be found on my site at mikestarks.com on the market report page. If you have questions, feel free to email me at mike@mikestarks.com or you can call me either way. And if you've watched this for this long, why don't you take another minute and let's just all say a little prayer for the folks over in Kerrville, Hunt, and Ingram. But actually, we've had floods that affected all of Texas, so let's just keep all these guys in mind who've lost property and, more importantly, who've lost lives in your thoughts. And if you can do something to help, then get out there and do it.